The morning Elias Monroe walked through the front doors of Westbrook Academy, the sky outside was gray and flat, the kind of sky that gives no promises. He carried a backpack on one shoulder, a folded schedule in his hand, and a quiet on him that was harder than it looked. He was 17 years old. He had buried his father 8 weeks before. And now, because life does not stop for grief, he was starting over in a school where he knew absolutely no one. Westbrook was one of those schools that had a feel to it the moment you stepped inside. The hallways were wide and bright, the floors were polished, and the students moved through them with a confidence that only comes from knowing exactly where you belong. There were groups at every corner, every locker bank, every staircase. Groups with their own rules, their own language, their own invisible borders. Elias noticed all of it in the first 30 seconds. He also noticed that not a single person looked at him the way you look at someone you are happy to see. He was looking for room 1114. He had his schedule folded in his hand, turning it slowly, trying to match the numbers on the wall to the ones in front of him. His jacket was a navy blue that had been washed one too many times. His shoes were clean but not new. His glasses were thin wire frames that sat slightly crooked on his face. He was not the kind of student who walked into a room and made people look up. He was the kind who hoped they did not. He found the right hallway and was halfway down it when it happened. A shoulder hit him from the left. Hard. Not an accident. The kind of contact that has intention behind it. His notebook flew from his hand and hit the floor, pages separating and sliding across the tile in every direction. His schedule fluttered down last, landing face up at the feet of the boy who had hit him. His name was Dane Hargrove. Everyone at Westbrook knew it. Dane was tall, broad-shouldered, and wore his popularity the way some people wear expensive watches, always visible, always a reminder. He played varsity soccer, he dated whoever he wanted, and he had a group of friends who moved with him the way shadows move with the sun. He looked down at the schedule on the floor, then looked up at Elias, and smiled. "Dane, watch where you're going, new kid." His friends laughed. Students passing slowed their steps. A small circle formed the way it always does when someone senses something worth watching. Elias bent down and began picking up his pages, one by one, without a word. He did not look up. He did not argue. He simply collected his things, straightened his glasses, and kept walking. For a moment, Dane looked almost disappointed. He had expected more. He had expected flinching, or apology, or the red face of someone who wanted to disappear. What he got instead was a boy who picked up his papers and walked away as if Dane was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. That, as it turned out, was the thing that made Dane decide Elias was someone he wanted to break. The days that followed were not kind. In the cafeteria on Tuesday, Elias set his tray down at an empty table near the window. He had barely pulled out his chair when someone walked past and nudged the tray with enough force to send his cup of water sliding off the edge. It hit the floor. The liquid spread across the tile. The group at the next table laughed. Elias looked down at the mess, then looked up. Dane was already walking away, talking to his friends as if nothing had happened. On Wednesday, in gym class, the teacher divided them into teams. Elias was put on a team and handed a penny. Before he could pull it over his head, someone in the group made a comment about his shoes being from 3 years ago. The laughter that followed was not loud. It was the quiet, knowing kind. The kind that is designed to make a person feel small without making the teacher look up. On Thursday, a social media account appeared. It had no name, no face, just a username. And it had posted a photograph of Elias taken in the hallway, candid, unflattering, with a caption that invited people to vote on whether the new student was the worst-dressed person at Westbrook. By the time Elias heard about it, 43 people had already voted. Through all of it, he said nothing. He did not go to the principal. He did not confront Dane. He did not cry in public, though there were moments, alone in the bathroom between classes, when the weight of everything pressed down on him so hard that he had to grip the edge of the sink and breathe slowly until it passed. He was grieving his father and being humiliated every day, and he was doing both of those things without anyone to lean on. What he did not know was that someone was watching. Jordan Calloway sat at the back of every class he shared with Elias. He was a senior, 18 years old, with the kind of stillness about him that makes people uncomfortable because they cannot read it. He was the student body president. He was the undefeated state boxing champion for 2 years running. His family had donated the school's new science wing. But none of those things were why students moved out of his way in the hallway. They moved because Jordan had never once needed to raise his voice to be heard. And somehow, that was more powerful than anything loud. He had watched Dane shoulder Elias on the first morning. He had watched the cafeteria incident, the gym class comment, the quiet cruelty that repeated itself day after day. He had said nothing, not because he did not care, but because he was waiting for something he needed to confirm first. He confirmed it on Friday afternoon. He found Elias alone in the school library, sitting at a table in the back corner, doing homework with his head down. Jordan pulled out the chair across from him and sat. Elias looked up, startled. He had never spoken to Jordan Calloway. Most students had not. Jordan was not the kind of person who came to you unless he had a reason. "Jordan, your name is Elias Monroe." It was not a question. Elias set his pen down slowly. "Elias." "Yes." "Jordan, your father's name was Marcus Monroe." The library was very quiet. Elias felt his chest tighten. "Elias, how do you know that?" Jordan reached into the front pocket of his jacket and placed something on the table between them. It was a small photograph, printed on regular paper, slightly creased at the corner. In it, a man in his 40s stood beside a teenage boy in boxing gloves. The man had his hand on the boy's shoulder. He was smiling. The teenage boy in the photograph was Jordan, 3 or 4 years younger, but recognizable. The man beside him was Elias's father. Elias stared at the photograph for a long time without speaking. "Jordan. He coached me for 4 years. Every Saturday morning, 6 to 8, in the old gym on Carver Street. He never charged me more than I could afford, which for the first 2 years was nothing at all. He told me once that he was not teaching me how to fight. He was teaching me how to stand up. There is a difference." Elias pressed his lips together. He was not going to cry. He had decided, weeks ago, that he was not going to cry in front of anyone at this school. He had kept that promise every day so far. "Jordan, I drove to his funeral. I stood at the back. I saw you. You held your mother's hand the whole time, and you did not break once. I thought that was one of the strongest things I had ever seen." Silence. "Elias, why are you telling me this?" "Jordan, because the people in this school have spent 2 weeks making you feel like you are nothing, and I want you to know that the man who raised you was one of the best people I have ever met. Whatever they say about your jacket or your shoes or your lunch tray, none of it changes what I know about where you come from." Elias looked down at the photograph. Then he slid it back across the table toward Jordan. "Elias, I don't want you to fight my battles for me." Jordan picked up the photograph and put it back in his pocket. "Jordan, I'm not going to fight them. I'm just going to remind them of something they seem to have forgotten." The winter assembly happened the following Monday. It was a school tradition, held every semester in the main gymnasium, with the entire student body present. 800 students filled the bleachers. Teachers lined the walls. The principal was on the small stage at the far end, going through announcements. It was the kind of event where the students in the back barely listened, and the ones in the front pretended to. Dane Hargrove was near the center of the bleachers, surrounded by his usual group. He was relaxed, leaning back, saying something that made the people around him laugh. The morning before, a video had been shared in the school's group chat. Someone had filmed Elias tripping on a step near the science block and had added text over it that read, "Westbrook's newest star." The video had been watched over 200 times before a teacher reported it. Dane had not posted it, but everyone knew where it came from. Elias sat alone near the top of the bleachers. He had his hands folded in his lap and his eyes forward, and he looked like someone who had learned how to be invisible on purpose. Jordan came in late. He walked through the gymnasium doors when the assembly was already 10 minutes in. He did not apologize for being late. He did not hurry. He walked at his own pace across the gym floor, and as he did, something changed in the room. The murmuring in the bleachers quieted. Students who had been turned sideways shifted to face forward. Even Dane's group straightened slightly, the way people do when they sense that the temperature of a room has changed. Jordan did not go to the bleachers. He stopped in the open space of the gym floor, in front of everyone, and he turned to face the student body. Then he looked at the principal. "Jordan, I apologize for interrupting. I need 1 minute." The principal, who had worked at Westbrook for 11 years and had a particular respect for Jordan Calloway, stepped aside from the microphone without a word. Jordan did not use the microphone. He did not need to. When he spoke, his voice carried across the gym with a natural weight that silence alone could not create. 800 students heard every word, without him raising his volume by a single degree. Jordan, most of you have spent the last 2 weeks laughing at someone. Some of you did it out loud. Some of you did it in group chats. Some of you just watched and said nothing, which is its own kind of choice. The person you were laughing at is Elias Monroe. He came to this school 8 weeks after his father died. He came here not knowing anyone, not having asked for any of this, and this is what we gave him. No one laughed. No one spoke. The gymnasium was so quiet that the sound of the ventilation system above the ceiling was suddenly audible. Jordan. His father's name was Marcus Monroe. Some of you would not know that name. I do. Marcus Monroe spent 4 years coaching me, not because he had to, not because he was paid well to do it, but because he believed that the right thing to do was to show up for people. He showed up every Saturday morning without fail. He was one of the most decent people I have ever known. And his son is sitting in this building right now, and we have been treating him like he does not matter. I want that to stop. Today. Not because I am asking, because it is right. He stopped. He let the silence sit for a moment. Then he looked across the bleachers until he found Elias at the top, and he held his gaze there for just a second, before he turned and walked to the bleachers and sat down. Nobody moved. Then, from somewhere in the middle section of the bleachers, a girl stood up and began to clap. She was not a friend of Jordan's. She was not a friend of Elias's. She was just someone who had heard something true and felt it land. Then the boy beside her stood. Then 3 more. Then, like something slow and unstoppable, it moved through the bleachers, section by section, until the majority of 800 students were on their feet. Elias did not stand. He sat where he was, at the top of the bleachers, his jaw tight and his eyes too bright. He looked at his hands. He breathed. He did not let himself break, not even now, not even with 800 people clapping, and the weight of his father's name still hanging in the air. Dane Hargrove sat in the middle of it all, and did not clap. He looked at the floor. For the first time in his 4 years at Westbrook Academy, he had no audience. Things changed after that Monday. Not perfectly, not overnight, but in the small, measurable ways that matter, when you are the one who has been on the other side of cruelty. Students who had laughed began to walk past Elias in the hallway without the smirk. The table by the window in the cafeteria, which had been empty every day because people avoided sitting near him, began to fill. First 1 person, then 2. Then a girl named Maya, who was the editor of the school paper, and who had been writing notes about everything she had witnessed for 2 weeks, sat across from him with her lunch tray and introduced herself like it was the most normal thing in the world. The school administration met with Dane's parents that Wednesday. The social media account, the video, the pattern of incidents, all of it documented and placed in front of them. Dane was suspended for 3 days. When he came back, he was no longer the captain of the varsity team. He moved through the hallways more quietly after that. He was still there, still present, but something had shifted in the way people looked at him. Jordan gave Elias something before the semester ended. He stopped him after class one afternoon and held out a small laminated card. It was old, the kind of card coaches keep in their wallets, with a name and a phone number on one side and a handwritten quote on the other. The handwriting was familiar. Elias had grown up reading it on birthday cards and notes left on the kitchen counter. Jordan, he kept it, all 4 years. I found it when I was cleaning out my gym bag after his funeral, and I realized I must have borrowed his jacket once. I held on to it, because I could not figure out how to let go of it, but it belongs with you. Elias took the card. He read his father's handwriting on the back. He did not read it out loud. He pressed it between his palms and stood there for a moment, and Jordan did not say anything, because some moments do not need words to fill them. 6 weeks after the assembly, Elias stood at a podium in the school auditorium. He had been nominated by his English teacher, and voted in by students he had not even spoken to. The event was the semester's academic honors ceremony, and Elias had been asked to give the closing address. He had written it himself, alone at the kitchen table at night while his mother slept. He had written it and rewritten it 4 times. He had thrown the first 3 versions away because they were too careful, too polished, too much like what people expected. The 4th version was the one he kept, because it was simply honest. He stood at the podium and looked out at the auditorium. His mother was in the third row. She was wearing the blue dress she saved for important occasions, and she was looking at him the way she had looked at him his whole life, as if he was the most important thing in the room, and also as if she could see his father standing right behind him. He began to speak. He told them what it felt like to walk into a school where no one saved you a seat. He did not say it with anger. He said it plainly. The way you described something that happened, because it did happen, and pretending otherwise would have been a waste of everyone's time. He told them that his father once said, that dignity is not something other people give you. It is something you carry, and the hardest thing he had ever done in his life, harder than losing someone he loved, harder than starting over, was to keep carrying it on the days when everything around him was designed to take it away. He told them that he was not standing at that podium because someone rescued him. He was standing there because he refused to let go of what his father had given him, and because one person in this school chose to speak the truth at a moment when it would have been much easier to stay quiet. He did not say Jordan's name. He did not need to. At the back of the auditorium, Jordan Calloway stood with his arms folded and his back against the wall. Maya sat in the aisle seat of the last row, her notebook in her lap, and her pen behind her ear. She was not writing. She had decided, for once, to simply be present in a story instead of recording it. Elias finished speaking. He stepped back from the podium. The applause that followed was not the standing kind from the assembly. It was quieter than that, and somehow more real. It was the sound of people who had listened to something true and were responding to it the only way they knew how. He walked off the stage and found his mother in the third row. She put her arms around him and held on, and he let her, and for the first time in a long time, he did not have to hold anything back. Outside the auditorium windows, the sky had cleared. It was the kind of evening that comes without warning in late winter, when the air is still cold but the light is long and golden, and it lands on everything with a warmth that makes the world look, for just a moment, exactly like it should.